So here we go. Welcome. How are we doing on this Tuesday? We're doing okay?
Pretty good.
Pretty good? All right. I mean, the sun is up. It's nice outside. You know, what isn't there to like? What isn't there to like? Read an article online, and it was about John Denver's song "Sunshine," and just what that song means. You know, especially at this time of year, seeing the sun and the sun being on you. That was an interesting story, different than what we normally get in what you see typically online. So I figured I had to dial it in and read it all day. So, okay. So with that, today we will continue with our study of authoritarians, and we start just a little bit on Adolf Hitler. And so yesterday I had rambled on about his rise to power, and just to kind of recap a little bit of his rise to power, you know, you look up there, you know, what was in terms of his formula to come to power, and he took it. Definitely, the economic conditions of Germany presents itself to allow for someone to perhaps maybe have a plan, like a New Deal or job scheme plan, or looks like he has an idea of how to get Germany out. So the economic conditions with the global Great Depression, the political instability, how fragile the democracy that was in Germany, established by the Weimar Republic with the creation of what we call those coalition governments. And coalition governments only stay together as long as the partnership remains. But once they fall apart, maybe because of what someone said, or maybe because of a condition that comes up, or a scandal, whatever it is, the government collapses and they have to go at it again. And so one looks at, you know, we can have criticism about our two-party system that we have and our governmental system that we have, but it does create a little bit more stability than perhaps governments that are created by coalitions, stuff like that. Mistakes by political opponents. I mean, some thought that they could control this guy. That is a huge mistake. You know, they're thinking, okay, give him the chancellorship and we'll be able to manipulate him. Wrong. Events as well, like the burning of the Reichstag fits in there. That then he gets lawmaking ability with the Enabling Act, so that becomes very critical here in him beginning to change what Germany looks like. Of course, effective use of propaganda and spinning the situations to his advantage, and then the individual himself as well. Many look at him as the only one that possibly could lead them out of their difficulties. All right, so that's kind of like a little review of what I had talked about yesterday. Now, for today, I do want to give you some time to work on the domestic and foreign policy activity, kind of break down and look at the different components of Nazi Germany and determine how successful he was. But before that, I do have a couple clips that I want to show, and it's focusing on, again, his rise and then the beginnings of the transformation. All right, so if we can think of some words or phrases that we think describes Adolf Hitler. What are some words or phrases that come to your mind about this guy? Either at home or here. And if you're at home, you can put it in the chat. What do we got? What are some words or phrases, be appropriate, that you think describe Hitler? Opportunistic. Opportunistic. That's a good one.
Committed.
Committed. Okay, committed. You want to explain that one a little bit?
Yeah, because him and the Nazi Party struggled through periods of time, like losing support, and he was in prison and all these different things, and yet he stayed with his cause and with his plan and carried it out almost to the end.
Okay, that's a good one. Committed. He's got patience then. Very persistent. All right, what else? Power hungry. Power hungry. All right. I see in the chat we got feared. Good. Anyone else? You're all being kind. What do you got?
Yes, like an obsession.
Okay, obsession. Obsession, and Jews seem to be his scapegoat. All right. And one would say, you know, he did have some anti-Semitic feelings, but once he got into kind of the culture that's there in southern Germany, in the Munich area, it really starts to be defined. He's expressed some of that when he was in Vienna, but when he got into southern part of Germany, where there was a hotbed of anti-Semitic feelings, it really becomes more defined. Okay, anyone else? Okay, so what I have here is a video clip here. We're going to watch it for a little bit. And with this, we're going to get some other perspectives on this guy. All right, and this is more about his early days in his rise to power. All right, so let's just watch this clip and see what people think about Adolf Hitler. First, let me mute my mic here.
Two months after this film was shot, he would attempt to take over Germany and fail. Overnight, Hitler became a national figure. To some magnetic, to others absurd.
The Munich savior filled the headlines with a ridiculous attempt to stage a revolution in a beer cellar. In fact, the revolutionaries had been dispersed by police fire as they left the cellar. And that was the end of the matter.
But it wasn't. The swastika, or Hakenkreuz flag, carried that day by Hitler's National Socialist Party, was stained with the blood of the fallen. From this point forward, Hitler would call it the flag of martyrs, and use it to inspire a growing following of true believers. Nazis.
I feel electrified. A man by the name of Adolf Hitler has tried to restore honor to the German people. I feel with an increasing certainty that a man has arisen to lead the fatherland towards a brighter future.
Here in Bückeburg, in north-central Germany, film hobbyist Adolf von Hinüber shot this film with his 9.5mm camera. "200 miles away, in Berlin, communists were filming these violent clashes with police. But if you were a loyal follower of Adolf Hitler, you would have been here. It was August 2nd, 1929. And the National Socialists were filming their third party rally, the first here in Nuremberg. 100,000 Nazis attended.
Suddenly, Adolf Hitler appears. He goes to each man, shaking his hand. There are things one cannot explain, cannot describe. I never stop thinking of him. Sometimes he meets us in our dreams.
In this footage, Hitler consecrates Nazi Party flags by touching them to the Blutfahne, the blood-stained swastika of his failed revolution. The loyalists were dazzled.
People call him a fool and a dreamer and much more. But what you say is true, Adolf Hitler. It is critical to our nation's history that we introduce over 65 million people to the ideas of National Socialism. 65 million National Socialists. Wonderful, fantastic, this goal.
Most Germans still thought of Hitler as too radical, if they thought of him at all. But in less than 3 months, Wall Street would crash.
All right. Okay, so do we have any thoughts about Adolf Hitler with that, as he's being described?
His followers seem very devoted to him, and he seems like almost like a mythical or godlike person to them, visiting them in their dreams and stuff like that.
Yes, it's kind of amazing to think that he's dreamy in that way. But yeah, you know, these are what you said, his followers, and in that little clip, it gives the impression that there are a lot of followers, and the numbers have grown. But this is 1929, and their numbers are still what we might consider insignificant. Are they approaching 1 million? They're getting there. They're getting there. Heck, you know, I always would say, you know, to put it in perspective, there's actually more members of the Ku Klux Klan in the United States than there are Nazi members in Germany. By 1929, you know, there could be up to about 6 million Ku Klux Klan followers in the United States in 1929. That also highlights the 1920s is an era of intolerance as well, that there are fringe groups out there. But yeah, again, I don't want to diminish. That's a very valid point there. What else can we say?
I find it very amazing how many times Hitler has survived. If we talked about like earlier how they staged that beer hall revolution out, like I don't know how many people were involved, but 16 men were killed, and Hitler didn't happen to be one of them. So I just found that interesting.
That is a good point. How you also got chance there as well, and you can find that with some of these other leaders as well, like Fidel Castro, when the failed invasion of trying to take over Cuba, and he flees to the Sierra Maestra. It's the grandma incident that failed. But here, Hitler as well, he survived, got some jail time, wrote a book. He's an overnight sensation now. People know who he is. Whether they take him serious, that's another thing. But he did find a way to stay. He's got some staying power. Right? And that also goes back to being able to outdo your opponents. Anything else? Okay. Now this next clip here, and this will be my final clip here, is going to focus more on youth and women. So if we look at our activity, and it's about what kind of policies is Nazi Germany coming up towards about youth and about women and their roles in society, this little clip is going to give some insight into this. All right, viewer discretion is, I should have said at the beginning, whenever we watch anything like this, especially about Adolf Hitler, got to have a little viewer discretion there as well. Some of the language and all that stuff in there might be a little disheartening. All right, so let's see, we'll start it about here. Yeah, start about there. Okay. Let me mute myself.
Berlin returned to normal. And Lotte and Kurt Hartmann returned to Brunswick, where they screened their Olympic home movies for sons Ulrich and Peter. Peter Hartmann was proud to be a German boy. And so he joined the Hitler Youth. By 1936, all children over 10 were required to join, whether they were willing or not. The many thousands of new members were to be presented to Hitler as a gift for his 48th birthday. If you were a 10-year-old boy in Germany, you too might have wanted to join after watching films like this.
Sag Mutter, ach, wir haben abgekocht, geturnt und geschwommen und gesungen. Ein Lied haben die gesungen, sag ich dir. Und wie ging das noch? Das habe ich doch vergessen. Und warte mal, jetzt habe ich. Unsere Fahne flattert uns voran.
For our field exercises, our squad has to find the other squad through military reconnaissance. Once the enemy squad is found, there are fistfights. This exercise is supposed to teach us that comradeship, as they call it, is formed in battle.
We are dreadfully worried. The boys won't listen to us anymore. When my wife insisted that our oldest obey, he drew his dagger and assaulted her. He shouted, "I belong to the Führer first. The family comes second." Within 2 years, nearly 8 million children had taken the Hitler Youth Oath of Allegiance. I swear to devote myself to Adolf Hitler.
I am willing and ready to give up my life. So help me God.
In the end, many of them would.
You're watching Third Reich, The Rise. For more on World War II, go to History.com.
It was 1937. An amateur filmmaker, Walter Langer, celebrated his wedding by making this short film. Langer and his bride were exactly the kind of Germans Hitler wanted more of. Industrious, politically enthusiastic, and most importantly, Aryan. Women like Mrs. Langer were encouraged by the Reich to have as many children as possible. Because if the Third Reich was going to achieve its goals, it didn't just need better Germans, it needed more of them.
In the eyes of our beloved leader, the mother is the most important person in the nation. We are Germany's hope in the future. And it is our duty to breed and rear the new generation of sons and daughters.
This female division of the Hitler Youth was filmed hiking outside Munich in 1937. Participation was mandatory for these girls, who were required to document that they were Aryan and free of hereditary disease.
Dear Mother and Father, in our camp there are 48 girls. Near us is a boys' camp. We see the boys very often and mend their clothing as we spend the evenings with them. A funny thing, of these 48 girls, 35 are pregnant. And still funnier, I'm one of the 35.
Upon learning of her daughter's pregnancy, one girl's horrified mother rushed to the camp to investigate and discipline her daughter. The 16-year-old replied hotly that if her mother did not go home and leave her alone, she would report her to the camp leader, who would in turn report the mother to the Gestapo, who would then take action against her for sabotaging German motherhood.
So any thoughts from that little clip about the role of women or the youth in Nazi Germany, just based on that particular clip? Any immediate feedback?
They really instilled Hitler's ideas and values into both children and women and young ladies as well. And they really created more loyal Germans to Hitler through these programs.
Okay. So if we look back here, for women, what is the role of women in this Nazi Germany? What's that? Making babies, being a mom. And so they will be very purposeful in encouraging women to have children. Found ways to get women out of the workforce, change some laws that way. But then also reward women for the amount of babies they do have. It's almost like baby Olympics. You're going to get a medal. Seriously, you're going to get a medal. So if you have at least 4 kids, you're going to get a bronze. You want a gold medal? I believe you're going to have to get over 8 babies. You have to get a gold medal. So I guess, my mother in the day probably would have got a bronze because she only had 4 kids. But my grandma Newcomb, she probably would have got a gold because she had a lot of kids. But when you look at Nazi Germany, women, therefore, now are going to take a step back. Their status changes from the Weimar Republic, which gave more rights to women. Now, under Nazi Germany, women will have those rights dialed back because the German mother needs to be a mother, needs to take care of the kids, and the father needs to be off at the workplace. So very traditional society. All right, for the youth, what's their role? For young men, you're going to be trained to become a soldier, and that means you're joining the Hitler Youth. It's mandatory now, and it's military-style training. So no way can we really look at this as kind of like, this is like, the German version of the Boy Scouts. No, it's not a German version of the Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts aren't doing that type of stuff. If there is anything close to even kind of remotely, we might want to look at the New Deal program, Civilian Conservation Corps, that's run by the U.S. Army. They're living in barracks, and it's very military-like. But again, the CCC's job is to go out there and build like trails in state parks and national parks and clear up rivers and stuff like that. They're not training to eventually go off to war, one would say. So, and for young girls, for teenage girls or just girls in general, they need to join the various organizations like the Hitler Maiden as well, and learn how to become eventually good Nazi German women. So you see, this is how he is going about changing society now once he gets control. Right, this is just a little snapshot. Okay, any other final thoughts on that? Now he is going to try to really hit every aspect of society here. And that's what you're doing, is you're going to try to look at the types of programs that Nazi Germany is creating and evaluate the success that they have, right? If we look at the youth, after the war, there's going to be some reprogramming that needs to happen here. So that's going to be part of the reconstruction phase of Germany here, whether it's in the East or the West. There's going to be some reprogramming that needs to definitely happen here. Okay, so ultimately, you know, we look at Hitler as an authoritarian, but is he a totalitarian, though? You know, they are a little different. Authoritarians, style of rule, as well as totalitarian. Totalitarian means total control. Does Hitler have total control in every phase, aspects of society? Hopefully by Thursday we can arrive at, is he a totalitarian or not? Okay. So with that, we have the rest of the class period here to work on this domestic and foreign policy activity. So if you're working with historical buddies, you know, you can check in with them, either create a Google Meet and get in with them, or text them, create your spreadsheet or whatever, create your Google Doc so you can share whatever it is. But I do encourage you, this is an activity which it is good for you to perhaps work with someone. All right. So with that, those at home, you are free to go and have a great day, or stay on and work and ask questions.